Hi, I'm CF3 Loyal, still staying at home every other Saturday, thanks to Nicola Sturgeon, and Joe Aribo travelling to Spain. Bringing you the latest quintessential Rangers vlog as we look at match day 6, which finished Hamilton Academical 0, Rangers 2. Now, as always, we'll start with the starting 11, and there was one change to the lineup. It was Yanis Hadji in for the injured Cedric Etienne, which meant that John McLaughlin retained his place as number 1, and Alfredo Morelos didn't make the starting 11. Now, let's talk about those players. Firstly, Yanis Hadji. That was a much better performance from Yanis Hadji. I've been critical of his performances so far since the start of the season, but that was much improved. He obviously got his goal, but in addition to his goal, he wanted to be more involved in the game, and when he was on the ball, he looked to be more confident in moving it forward, and that was very pleasing to see. In actual fact, the second half, he had some great link-up play with Ryan Kent, which potentially should have led to a goal. Then there's John McLaughlin. We now have the 2 Scotland international goalkeepers within our squad, whilst also having the best goalkeeper in Scotland in our squad. And in my lifetime, Rangers have always had at least 2 top goalkeepers competing for the number 1 jersey, and that's a very good recipe to have for a successful Rangers team. But it does pose the question, does John McLaughlin now hold the number 1 jersey? In my opinion, yes, he does. And that's a difficult one for me to answer because in my lifetime I've seen Chris Woods, Andy Gorham, Stefan Kloss, but Alan McGregor's right up there with one of the best goalkeepers in my lifetime. But John McLaughlin's done nothing wrong. But in addition to doing nothing wrong, he's really stepped up when he's been asked to, so with some decent saves at some key points of the game. But actually some of the journalists are saying that actually one of the things that John McLaughlin has over Alan McGregor is a very calming influence on the defence, which when you look at the defensive record and the centre-backs and the defenders in front of him, they seem to be responding well to it. Let me know your thoughts. Does John McLaughlin now hold the number 1 jersey, or would you have Alan McGregor come back in? Then we have Alfredo Morelos, who didn't start the game, in actual fact didn't come off the bench. And I'm glad he didn't feature for 2 reasons. One, it's good to see us having real strength and depth in the squad that allows us to have someone of his quality sit on the bench. But secondly, it's also good for Alfredo Morelos to be reminded that Rangers are much bigger than you. Anyway, we do have some other players to mention. We'll start with the back 4. We have now equalled the clean sheet record of Scottish football, which was set in 1906. And I have some other stats for you. Philippe Hollander has started 22 games for Rangers, and in those games he has had 14 clean sheets. As a pairing between Hollander and Goldson, they've played 20 times and only conceded 11 goals. 14 of those games have been domestically, of which they've only conceded 5. If Hollander and Goldson can stay fit, that can prove to be a very solid partnership indeed, especially when you consider that Leon Balogun started so well and could potentially feel unfortunate to not be in the starting 11 after his injury, but that's a very good player to be back up and challenging for those positions. Also, we have James Tavernier, who scored his first goal of the season, but actually his record so far is not too shabby. Played 6, assisted 3, and scored 1. Well done, skipper. Another player worthy of mention is Kemar Roof. Not his best game, but his movement caused problems in the defence all game, but he was off it. He looked very rusty, and actually during international break, I know he's away back down south, it's good to see him still training whilst he's on the break. Then we'll finish on Ryan Kent as a player in particular. I think Ryan Kent is relishing being our star man. From a stat perspective, he recorded more shots on target, more dribbles past the opponent than any other player so far this season in the SPFL. In fact, it's those shots from outside the box that I want to focus on, because we've seen that Tav got his goal from the rebound that was created from Ryan Kent's shot. But actually that seems to be something that the manager and the coaching staff are drilling into the players at the moment to have more shots from outside the box. You see that Tav had the rebound when the goalkeeper saved it and padded it out. Somebody's always following it in. But actually, one of the reflections from the Kilmarnock game is when you look at Kemar Roof's goal, there was a number of times where we were hitting shots from outside the box that were being saved by the goalkeeper and coming out. And to try and counter that and trying to counter any rebounds from inside the box, the defenders were pressing against the shooter, and that created space when Kent played it out wide to Barisic. Barisic then cut it in, and Roof then tapped it in. That then means that we're starting to mix it up and cause defences problems. And one of my biggest criticisms of the Rangers team under Steven Gerrard is sometimes in our final third, we can be a little bit too predictable. But back to Ryan Kent. I'm loving his attitude just now. He made it very clear that he wants to play for Rangers. Post-match he said that every time he steps onto that field he wants to perform for this club. And I also loved his comment around if we could carry on playing right now, we would, when he was referencing the international break. That shows not only that his confidence is high, but also that of his teammates. Now, away from the players, let's talk about the game itself. Now, pre-match, Jordan Campbell from The Athletic said, "It's another important game for Rangers against Hamilton, but for the first time in quite a while, it seems like the atmosphere going into the game is slightly more relaxed." Now, it was only Hamilton, and in truth, they offered nothing during the match, but I would agree with that comment. Rangers fans pre-match would have settled for a scrappy 1-0 victory, as 3 points the most important thing at this stage of the season, in fact all season. But it's interesting because social media looked like we were all raging that we won 2-0 and continued with our 6th clean sheet in a row. And I think that's because we were in full control of the game for 90 minutes and we were very wasteful in front of goal. In fact, Steven Gerrard himself said that we were wasteful and need to be more ruthless. He said himself that was a game that we could have racked up a few goals and potentially won 4-5-0, and I think goal difference could be hugely important this season. The only other thing I'd call out about the game itself was we had a big penalty claim for a blatant push on Kemar Roof. Andy Walker said it was an exaggerated fall, and Willie Collum said that Kemar Roof pushed the defender first. We all know what's at stake this season. Wasn't that what the referee said? Anyway, away from the game, other things to call out since match day 5. Great to see Walter Smith back involved in training and helping out Steven Gerrard and the coaching team. I think it's brilliant that Steven Gerrard's accepting the support of legends like Walter Smith, like Graham Souness, because we all do know what's at stake this season, and any help that helps us win silverware is wanted, is merited, and great to see Steven Gerrard man enough to accept it as well. We've also seen Lewis Mayo sign a new contract until 2023. Clearly, the manager has been impressed with him. He impressed during pre-season, enough to get that new contract. I would expect him to go out on loan, possibly to an SPFL team. Hopefully we'll see some movement in the transfer front during the international break. And it is the international break, and I think with the number of players travelling with their countries, it shows the real strength of our squad and how far we have come under Steven Gerrard. And it's also a good opportunity for us to finalise our squad. And I think that really depends on who leaves. We've seen Jamie Murphy move to Hibs on a similar deal to what Ross McCrory done with Aberdeen, where it's a season-long loan and it's an obligation to buy at the end of the season, albeit he was out of contract in 12 months' time anyway. But I think what that does is it certainly strengthens a Hibs team against Celtic the same way that we have strengthened an Aberdeen team against Celtic. And hopefully, Jamie Murphy, you're watching, and you can do us all a favour and make sure that Hibs beat Celtic when you go up against them. Alfredo Morelos. It genuinely wouldn't be a vlog without mentioning Alfredo Morelos. We all know of the Lille talk, but Lille this week have sold Gabriel, their centre back, to Arsenal, which means that they now have more money available. But also we've seen Porto come into the mix, and obviously Alfredo Morelos scored that very, very good goal against Porto at home. In fact, I actually watched that game again this week, and Ali McCoist's reaction to that goal is first class. But what a goal it was, and it's no surprise that Porto are sniffing about. I've seen a lot of people saying they prefer him go to Porto because of the way that Lille are bargaining over the transfer fee, etc. I honestly couldn't care. I think the time is right for Alfredo to leave the club, and I think a lot hinges on him leaving, and I would like to see him move so that we can start to get that quick turnaround of players coming in during the international break. And there has been some inbound rumours, starting off with Sean Weissman, who's a centre forward, an Israeli centre forward playing in the Bundesliga. He has now officially signed for Valladolid in Spain, who is owned by the legend that is the real number 9, Ronaldo from Brazil. And I don't think we can criticise any centre forward for wanting to play for the legend that is Ronaldo, possibly the greatest centre forward of my lifetime. We might talk about that another time if I get absolutely bored and have no other content during an international break. And then there's Dalar Kuziev. I have no idea if that's how you pronounce it. It's probably entirely wrong. I don't care. He's a 27-year-old Russian internationalist who is out of contract at Zenit St. Petersburg. He's rumoured to be on £27,000 per week, and he is a box-to-box central midfield player that we are all craving. But there is rumoured interest from other clubs such as Marseille, Besiktas and Alaves. As always, there's no real noise coming from inside the club, which is great, but we just have to watch and see what develops, particularly over the next 2 weeks. Hopefully there will be some movement. Looking ahead, the Europa League draw has been done. Firstly, in the qualifying round 2, we've been drawn against the Gibraltar team Lincoln Red Imps away from home on the 17th of September. They're most commonly known for beating Celtic 1-0 in Brendan Rodgers' first game in charge of the club, but they finished third in the Gibraltar League last season behind St Joseph's, who Rangers beat 10-0 on aggregate over the 2 games last year, including a 4-0 away win on the artificial pitch beneath the rock. If we do proceed, as expected, then our opponents will be either Willem II or Progress Nederkorn. I'm not even going to mention Pedro Caixinha in a hedge. I think as expected, like we will expectedly beat Lincoln Red Imps, I think we can expect Willem II to go ahead and beat Progress. And that match for qualifying round 3 will be played, I think, on the 24th of September. And a word on Willem II, they finished 5th in the Eredivisie, 6 points behind Feyenoord, who we played last season, and we won 1-0 at Ibrox with the Shea Ojo goal, and drew 2 each away from home in Holland, where we should have potentially won. It's another away draw, which is tough for us. I don't know too much about Willem II, other than that they are named after the King William of Orange and play at the King William Stadion. Apparently they've got a good central forward, a young 21-year-old Greek player with the name of Vangelis Pavlidis. I don't know much about him, but look back on the Osijek game of 2 years ago where Borna Barisic impressed. That could be Alfredo Morelos' replacement. But what that does mean though is that we do have a potentially tough run of games. It goes Dundee United after the international break at home, then potentially Lincoln Red Imps away, Hibs away, Motherwell away, then Willem II away, and then Motherwell away. That's a pretty tough test, but if we want to win the league and we want to progress in Europe, those are the games we have to win. Hopefully I'll be back vlogging before our next game against Dundee United. Talking about new players. We'll see. But otherwise, thanks for watching. I am CF3 Loyal. Stay safe, stay stoic.